now, time to get in the huddle with your host, Charles Prodigy Ritchie, here on the Mass Steel Podcast.
This thing belongs to Mr. Ronnie, belongs here, and let's see if we can bring this damn thing back in next year, along with the Super Bowl. Here we go.
The Pittsburgh Steelers did it the hard way. With the 10th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Devin Bush, linebacker, Michigan.
And hello, everybody, and welcome back to this edition here of the Mass Steel Podcast. Me, Charles Prodigy Ritchie. Like I always said, you can always catch me here every Mondays and Wednesdays at usually 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Just starting off a little bit late on this one, but we got some awesome stuff to get into right now. Steelers are on their bye week right now. Unfortunately, for their sake, I mean, this past weekend, the Ravens, who they needed to lose if they were going to try and make some further noise in the division, they lost. I mean, they won this past Sunday, as a matter of fact, in Seattle, defeated the Seahawks, and beat them commandingly. I feel if you look at that game right there, and you just saw Lamar Jackson right there in that game, pretty much out-hustled Wilson, I think, in my opinion. Almost like what he did like a few years ago when he broke out to the league. They beat the Seahawks by 2 scores, 2 touchdowns. 30-16 is your final score. With the Ravens taking advantage of that win, they gain an extra half a ground of footing on the AFC North. More particularly, the Browns were in second place, but the Steelers, in that regard, they are up 2.5 games right now in the division of the AFC North. So right now, it's definitely the pressure is on for the Steelers to keep it up next Monday night as they will be hosting the Miami Dolphins. Now, keep in mind that weekend, which, by the way, when we look at, the Ravens will be on their bye week, as a matter of fact. When they come off their bye, they'll be hosting the New England Patriots. That'll be a Sunday night game. So the Steelers, basically, if they win next week, they'll be back to 2 games as they were going to Week 7 when they're going into their bye following their win over the Chargers. But as far as like the AFC wildcard is concerned, they remain a game and a half out of the Houston Texans, by the way. And why is that? Well, simply put, when we look at the overall tiebreakers up to this point, I mean, when you really think about it, I mean, you got the Texans who are basically 4-3 right now, while the Steelers are 2-4. It's a game and a half out. But they were one of the tiebreakers they own over the Steelers, even though they are not tied, is that they're common games within the conference. And that common game being more in particular with the opponent so far when we take a look at it. And here is the difference right here in that. And I did a little bit of research on this today. Here's the main difference, basically, for as they both have beaten the Chargers this year. The one where it's really hurt, I mean, like the Steelers, as a matter of fact, is that they lost to the Ravens. So they're 1-2. But good news is, too, the Texans did lose on the road in Indianapolis yesterday afternoon. They lost that game. So the Texans are 1-1 at 500, while the Steelers are 1-2 in common games played in the AFC. Biggest difference right there. And right now, I mean, you got to think right now the pressure is definitely on them. And you want to avoid seeing where the season comes down the stretch where if it's going to be a possibility where they're going to have to win and need help. I hope it does not come down to that, because when you look at pretty much in the 2000s, basically within this past decade, as a matter of fact, I mean, 2009, let's face facts. They had to beat the Dolphins. They had to hope for the Ravens and a pair of other teams to lose to clinch the wild card to defend their Super Bowl. That didn't happen. You had 2013, where the Steelers beat the Browns on the final day of the season. The same years as they went 0-4, found a way to go to 8-8 to finish out their season after all the up and down nonsense they had going on with defense. It's pretty much when Dick LeBeau was basically almost on his way out. He had one more season after that, about a season later. But they beat the Browns. You had the Miami Dolphins lose. You had the Baltimore Ravens lose. And I want to say there was one more other team that they needed to lose. But other than that, the other team that they were waiting on was for the Chargers to lose to the Chiefs. And thanks to Ryan Succop missed field goal, they did not make the playoffs. The Chargers, the San Diego Chargers, at the time as they were called, San Diego, got that final wild card spot and went as far as the second round, only lose to Denver Broncos and Peyton Manning in the divisional round. But in 2015, of course, everyone remembers how that went. Steelers beat the Browns yet again, but they had the Bills beat the Jets. And by the Jets losing, the Steelers snuck into the number 6 playoff spot. And then recently, last year, in recent time and memory, Steelers beat the Bengals this time. But then also, too, you also had the Ravens beat the Browns. You needed the Browns beat the Ravens for the Steelers to get the AFC North division crown. That did not happen. So there you have it. That's how it worked out. And when you think about, like, within the last 10 years, I mean, when you look at it, the Steelers are 1 for 4 in that regard. 25% of the time where they had to win and count for someone to lose, they made the playoffs 1 out of 4 times. So 25% is their ratio when you look at it. But that's really not a good omen right there when you think about things. So right now we're on this Monday. Got some news to get into with some players that were available in practice, according to Ray Fittipaldo of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He can be followed on Twitter at RayFit1. And when we look at, and here's some of the guys he pointed out when he was like looking at it, as a matter of fact. And you had right now, I mean, because you still got TJ Watt, who's recovering from his oblique. Remember, we also seen Stefan Tuitt, who had the torn pec. He's out for the season. So that's going to be one thing that they're going to be feeling throughout late in the season. I'll be interested to see how that affects their pass rush. But as a matter of fact, like I said, you had Ola Adeni and Bud Dupree as available outside linebackers. As everyone woke up this morning, including yours truly, finding out about Anthony Chickillo right now, who actually got in an alleged assault with his girlfriend. As a matter of fact, it seems like it was over the weekend. As a matter of fact, as that story was broke right there. But I found this out from KDKA to CBS Pittsburgh, as a matter of fact, where I got my source, in case anyone was wondering how I found that one out. But right now, that Chickillo, he reported that their argument became physical, resulting in Newman hitting him in the head with her fist and him pushing her to the ground. But it seemed like one of the other things, too, because that was the domestic dispute that happened in Nemacolin Woodlands Resort with his girlfriend, Alicia Newman. And that one of the reports, according to the police, was that Chickillo attacked his girlfriend over table games, and that a verbal argument was followed in suit after that. And that the affidavit also said that Newman went back to the room and Chickillo followed, continuing the argument. And Newman says that when the argument became physical and Chickillo grabbed her by both arms and forced her against the wall and door, Chickillo then allegedly threw her to the ground, caused an injury. And he basically smashed her phone. So we'll see what happens. Basically, the Steelers, I mean, as a matter of fact, when finding out about this, ownership brass, of course, I mean, you can put 2 and 2 together, asked him to stay home. And right now, I mean, I think that's just bad timing right there I know he hasn't been playing as much of a role this year as far as like coming off the bench. I mean, what we hope in terms for this guy. But when you also look at it too, I mean, you want to be very careful because you got a guy like Ola Denny who's proven so far he hasn't been consistently available, I mean, throughout the season. And when you really look at it, I mean, you don't want to screw around with your depth right now. And I really like Chicolo as like what he's contributed. But as far as everything else, you got to be a little bit careful. You don't want to be shooting yourself in the foot right now when you could be using everybody. All hands on deck, as a matter of fact, when we look at it. But, yeah, I think you got to be very careful. You do not want to shoot yourselves in the foot. Obviously, when you look at it, I mean, when you look at a guy like Chicolo, who, by the way, he's had like a pretty low number of snaps being played this year. He played like about a little over 10%. I mean, so far throughout this season, as a matter of fact, and for this year's games, as it pertains to Chicolo, as a matter of fact, I mean, when you look at, he played in 3 games. That was the first 3 games. I mean, he played in 3 games throughout the season. That was the first 2, and then he came back later on against the last game against the LA Chargers, where he helped get an assisted tackle on that and was credited with half a sack in that game. So, again, if you guys want, feel free to be part of the show. The number to be reached is 312-209-2232. Again, that number is 312-209-2232. Again, you can always follow me on Twitter at Project Richie. You can also check out my Instagram stream, Men of Steel Nation. And you can also check me out streaming live on my YouTube channel currently right now. That's Men of Steel Podcast. And by the way, I have created an additional Twitter page for the Men of Steel Podcast finally. You can also check out. It's at Men of Steel CJR. I was trying to do Men of Steel Nation, but of course, Twitter with certain characteristics can only do so many letters. So feel free to check that out. I'll be keeping my tweets up there on and be tagging myself. And you can check me throughout the week. And like I said, remember, I also host On Deck here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. It's every Saturday covering Chicagoland and national trending sports topics and analysis. So feel free to check out a lot of my hosting right there as well. And I welcome those of you for taking part of your time, your Monday night, to be on here. And right now I got Fernando Curly Sanders saying that we are better than the Ravens. True, but here's the thing, too. At the end of the day, my only counter to that is that the Ravens, you got to give John Harbaugh credit so far. He's definitely proven he can work with a guy in Lamar Jackson when you look at it this year. I mean, Lamar Jackson, who I really feel like is having a solid year so far. I mean, when you look at it, I mean, this guy right here who's still running, a lot of people are still getting concerned when he's going to feel that impact hit if he keeps up at it. But I mean, at the same time, he has been elusive. And so far, I mean, he's completed about 63% of his passes, 1,650 yards. I mean, pretty much throughout 8 games. So, I mean, basically, I mean, this guy right here has got a potential to throw for over 3,000 yards. He's got 11-5 touchdown to interception ratio. The only thing I will say about him, he has been sacked 17 times at this point in time throughout the season. So you're kind of hoping if they can find a way to keep that sack total down on him. I mean, that's one thing I think people are starting to figure out. I mean, versus last year where you did come down the stretch, you got sacked 16 times within that stretch. So you're probably looking at a pace to go over like 34, 35 sacks the way he's going this year. I still make the argument to a lot of people, and I always said this, I really believe that foul pick at the end of the first round in the 2018 draft, Lamar Jackson was the steal not only of that round, but probably the entire night. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, when you really look at it here, I really believe so. I feel like right now they've been rolling with a hot string of momentum. I mean, throughout like their fan base. I mean, you got John Harbaugh, who actually went through his 3-year drought of not making the playoffs I mean, and then you're also in the final year, one of your front office executives right there too, Ozzie Newsome, who was in his last year, former Cleveland Brown, as well as Brown exec for a year. So you look at stuff like that right there, and you just gotta figure, you know what? At the end of the day, when you got a guy like John Harbaugh too, who still has good correlation with this team and represents everything about Ravens football in the AFC North, this guy is doing his job right here. Kind of like the revitalization, the way I see how Mike Tomlin went through when he missed not being in the playoffs 2 years, yet he did not have any losing seasons. So, I mean, when you really, put all those things together right there, I mean, you got to look at it and just say, hey, I mean, all the criticism that Tomlin's by getting over his career, John Harbaugh is kind of like right up there with him. But the only difference is John Harbaugh has had one losing season so far at this point in time. So I really right now would look at it and dare I want to say, yeah, the Ravens are doing better for the moment. They do got a 2.5 game lead on the Steelers. I mean, a lot of people would question. I mean, if not for that bogus roughing the passer call that the Steelers got hit with, they could probably end up winning that game, and you probably find yourself in a situation where you're a game and a half back versus 2.5 back at this point in time. So, I mean, I hear you. I mean, I'll probably say more so on the defensive side. Yeah, I mean, they're starting to figure things out. But I tell you what, one key name I want people to remember, too, I mean, when you look at the Steelers team, and I don't think he's getting talked about enough or getting his due, and I realize how Tomlin will always admit, too, that he's going to be loyal to his guys on his coaching staff. When you talk about Keith Butler and Randy Fichtner, and I believe they coached at the same school together at one time. But when you look at it overall, too, I mean, when you look at the coaching depth on this team, which we're going to get into here in just a second, I mean, when you look at it, you got senior defensive assistant and the secondary. I really got to believe he's been helping out like a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick. I mean, Minkah Fitzpatrick has already been good as advertised, and what the Steelers gave up for him, what they made that gutsy trade after Ben Roethlisberger was out for the season. But Terrell Austin Sr., that who I really feel like right now, he's got to be implementing something on that defensive game plan right there. I mean, when you look at it, I really do believe he's he's working together with Tomlin and the coaching staff, including Butler. I mean, sometimes when you have a bad flip-flop of the year, you need sometimes guys around. I mean, when you look at it, to kind of keep pressure on you, keep the pressure on, per se, let's say the coach who's struggling. And in this case, it would be a guy like Keith Butler. Like I said, I mean, who I've been screaming at for a while to kind of get some better takeaways. I mean, that's one of his biggest downfalls he had, was just not creating enough takeaways. I mean, yeah, you've been monsters in the pass rush pretty much for like 3 straight years. But, I mean, at the same time, too, it's just you're not creating enough takeaways that will make you be considered and say, hey, this could be a Super Bowl contending team right here. And I feel like that's just one thing. I mean, when you look at the opposite side of the ball, what was the theme throughout the 2017 season? Not getting in the red zone. They were towards the bottom of that at points in time, where they're floating around between 28th and around 31st in the league. When you had Todd Haley, yeah, I mean, they were converting third downs. They controlled the time of possession. But when it came down to punching into the end zone, they struggled at times. But they had good defense that was able to be a good dance partner with them that season. So, I mean, those are a lot of things right there I need people to really think about. And, yes, Fernando, I mean, I do feel like definitely technically wise right now, skill-wise, I would say the Steelers are better. But at the same time, they are the defending the AFC North Division champs at the end of the day, where we may like it or not. If you guys agree or disagree, whatever you feel, I want you to come in, check out the Facebook page, Men of Steel Podcast. You can simply type Men of Steel Podcast, or you can find it at Men of Steel Nation. That's capital M, capital S, capital N. You can follow me on my personal Twitter page at Prodigy Richie, as well as check out the Men of Steel podcast Twitter page. That's at Men of Steel CJR. My Instagram stream, Men of Steel Nation. That's all lowercase. And of course, my YouTube channel, Men of Steel Podcast, as we continue to move a little bit further here. Also, too, let's get back into it, too. Per Jerry Dulac right now, who's another famous Steeler insider right there, who, by the way, who covers the Steelers MPJ for Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and he's a radio network host, The Golf Show with Jerry Dulac. And he was saying that an NFL spokesman, Brian McCarthy, as far as like the Anthony Chickillo situation, said the league will look into the Chickillo matter. It is possible that Chickillo could be placed on the commissioner's exempt list and not be allowed to play for violating the league's personal conduct policy. So what do you do in a situation like this right now? We're going to get the fair or foul here in just a few minutes. We're on the opening drive. For those of you just tuning in, again, this is the Men of Steel podcast. I usually have it on at 6:30, just running a little bit late tonight. But like I said, if you guys want, feel free to get on the conversation. Number to be reached is 312-209-2232. Again, that's 312-209-2232. You can also check me out on Twitter at Prodigy Richie, as well as at Men of Steel CJR for the Men of Steel podcast Twitter page, Men of Steel Nation on Instagram, and my YouTube channel, Men of Steel Podcast, as we take a look at it right here, as we look at things right now. And also, in addition to that statement too, I mean, the prohibited conduct, according to the NFL's personal conduct policy, it includes also actual or threatened physical violence against another person, including dating violence, domestic violence, child abuse, and other forms of family violence. I don't know about you guys, but this is right now, I know he hasn't been playing his fair majority of the snaps this season, but again, you don't want to shoot yourselves in the foot. I'd really be interested to see if the Steelers would be willing to make another move at the trade deadline. I doubt that would happen, but then again, when you look at it too, and you look at the overall Steelers depth chart, I mean, for this season overall, and you start to wonder, I mean, who are guys that could realistically help out in that regard? I mean, you got on the practice squad right now, I mean, not very much linebackers, maybe with the exception of a guy right now who, when you look at it overall for this season, as we take a look at it for the practice squad, I mean, maybe a guy like Robert Spillane, who's from Western Michigan, number 41. He's a linebacker right there. I'd be wondering to see if he'd be a guy to make a contribution. But right now, Ola Denny seems like he's going to be the guy that Steelers will roll with in case he needs someone to come off the bench, make an impact play. I mean, when you look at it. And that would be my take. But the only thing is, well, if a guy like Ola Denny, he's been inconsistently healthy. I mean, when you look at it. And that's the only thing where I get like a little nervous. So, I mean, will he be as much available during key stretches when you're in situations like this? So, I mean, we'll see. I'm not holding my breath too much on that. But, again, I do feel like right now they definitely got a lot of stuff they got to answer to right now. And as far as everything, and you got to be a little bit careful at this point in time. You don't want to, put yourself in a situation where you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. You want to have all hands on deck no matter what. I mean, at the same time, when we look at it here, you just got to be careful. And I hope for the lady's sake and his girlfriend, I hope she's okay first and foremost. But, I got to tell you, though, I'm embarrassed right now. I mean, hearing about this, and people are definitely going to bring it up. I mean, you got a guy who's basically associated with this right now. It's not a good look for the team at all either way. I'm hoping it's not a point where, you may have to release the guy or do what you got to do. But at this point in time, when you look at it, we'll find out what happens. I mean, I could definitely see him serving a decent amount of time away from the team. I'm not sure, what's going to happen with him as far as like the court goes, but we'll find out. But let's get back to a little bit more down the business here as we look at it, as we look at other things here at this point in time here on the Man of Steel podcast with me, Charles Prodigy Ritchie, as we look at it right now for this moment in time. Let's get into fair or foul right now. Fair or foul that Ola Adeniyi will be playing a vital role for the Steelers right now, coming off the bench, down the stretch. You guys fair or foul on that one? I have to say foul for right now, only because I'm not saying he ain't going to come off the bench and be available, but as far as like making consistent plays, I'm not so sure about that, only because of his health history right here. You had a guy who came in one game last year against the Chargers, wasn't really much that effective. I'm referring to that game when they were at home, the one that yours truly was at when they lost at home to the Chargers. And when you really think about it, that's where I get a little bit like concerned right here the most. I'm not too sure if he's going to be the guy that's going to be always available. It's not like they always say, not always your ability, but your availability is sometimes what can make you or break you as far as an athlete and what you can contribute as far as to a team when you look at it here. So I'm going to have to say foul on that one for right now until proven otherwise. I hope I am wrong on that one. When we look at it, but it's definitely a lot more stuff. You got to be a little bit more watchful and a lot more communicative with, when we look at it here as it comes down to this. Also, fair or foul topic number 2 to close out the show. When we look at it, will we see the return of Roosevelt Nix to the team next Monday night when they host the Dolphins right now? Because also, too, as reported by Ray Fittipaldo of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, once again, he followed at RayFit1. As far as what he reported is that the Steelers could be getting several players back in the lineup when they face the Dolphins. He's talking about not only when you look at wide receiver James Washington right now, who, by the way, who was out. I forget what the injury he had on here. Let's take a look at it. Because James Washington, he had a shoulder injury. There we go. As he went in there, he's one of your starting receivers right there on the team. He also noted in there, too, that fullback Roosevelt Nix, the guy who's been starting off the season with a knee injury right now, this could be a huge thing that can help out a lot. And I think tremendously with the run game, catch some key passes. Because remember, this guy's got some good hands at the end of the day. And I like what he can do catching the ball, in my opinion. And I really feel like right now, this is a guy right here who's been like a bulldog to this team, very loyal to them, and has definitely helped a lot, I think, as well as like ball security. But not only that, just a guy you could also help in blocking and all the other good stuff that comes along with the territory, I feel. I really do feel like a guy right now, yeah, you got to just be a little bit more careful right there, and we'll see how that goes. But for right now, I'm looking at it as when we look at next Monday night, that when he'll be available, I'll say yes. But probably expect a little bit of rust, but we'll find out how it goes. When we look at it. So let's stay posted for that. When we look at things. And that's going to do it for a close here on this edition of the Man of Steel podcast. I just want to say thank you, everybody, once again for tuning in. Remember, you can always hit me up on Mondays and Wednesdays. This Wednesday, I will not be available. Just want to give everybody a heads up real quick. I'll be involved with another engagement. I know I wasn't here last Wednesday. As a matter of fact, as I was doing something with some other friends and entrepreneurs within the industry, Got some exciting news to be announcing coming up in the works here, so I'll keep you guys posted here. But anyway, like I said, it's been a pleasure so far, doing this podcast for over a year now at this point in time. I love having you as my audience and definitely enjoy the ride with you guys for right now. But for right now, the focus is, like I said, I know I'm going to call me crazy for saying this, but from old famous owner Al Davis for the Raiders, just win, baby. And that's what the Steelers got to do right now is just win, baby. The rest of the way, you just focus on your game. And everything else will take care of itself. You get some help along the way. You get help. You get some luck. We shall find out. As I always leave you, don't be trolling. Be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I gone.